Alright, what's going on everyone? Today we're going to be upgrading the Arcane Aggression starter deck. We'll be doing it on a budget. We will not be spending a single rare. So if you want to upgrade these, you need to go to your starter deck tab. You cannot edit these, but you can select it. Down here there's a clone option, so we'll do that. This is going to create a copy of the deck in your My Decks tab, and you can change this one however you like. And you will still have the original in the starter deck tab. So, this is an Izzet spells deck. We have stuff that cares about casting spells. This will get a counter. This will make a 1/1. This will deal a damage. This will incubate. And then we have spells. Pretty simple. Blue-based spell decks are very popular in Standard. They use Tolarian Terror and Haughty Djinn. And we get both of those. We get 2 of these and 1 of these. We'd like 4 of each. But yeah, this is pretty popular. The big issue with this deck is there is a ton of creatures. 17 is way too many creatures for a spell-slinging deck like this. If you've played this, I can guarantee you've had games where you've had like this and this and this and no spells to cast. And well, yeah, it's because there's a million creatures. 17 is pretty close to a million. So what we're going to do is you want to either click here, or if you're in this layout, you want to click here. And we're going to switch it over to Standard because we're not going to win in Alchemy with a starter deck, most likely. So this is going to be very simple at first. We're going to take out all the Alchemy cards. There's 3 of them. We'll just take out all of these. Gandalf is cool, I'm sorry. But we're just going to replace them with Consider. Now, Consider is very boring. So boring. It is 1 mana to surveil and draw a card. So boring, but it's like the freest spell ever. If we have stuff like this or Haughty Djinn, and it's 1 mana and it just gets us another card, and Surveil is relevant. Like if we're not playing a deck that has removal and we see this, we can toss it in the graveyard, and that's going to make Tolarian Terror less expensive, and it's going to make Haughty Djinn bigger, so that's great. So yeah, I mean, it's just a base. If you're playing blue spells, you're probably just playing a whole lot of these, and we're going to when I'm done with this deck. So next, I think we need to pick one of these. We have 2 of these, 2 of these, and I think it's like one or the other, and I actually think both are fine. If you prefer, the infantry, or if you prefer the iconoclast, that's fine. I think the iconoclast is better because we have like stuff like this with convoke, so having tokens is good. But if you prefer the 1 big creature, that's fine too. This gets counters and gets massive. It makes it more vulnerable to a removal spell, but this takes time to build up and can be vulnerable to like Brotherhoods and stuff like that. So they both have advantages and disadvantages, but I personally prefer the iconoclast. So for my official recommendation, I'm going with this. But if you're like, screw that, I want 4 of the infantry, you know what? That's fine. I'll allow it. Next, I want to get 4 Tolarian Terrors in. And our worst creature, I think, is this Meldweb Curator thing. It's a 4 mana 3/4. When it enters, we put an instant or sorcery from our graveyard to the top of our library. That'd be really good if we had like some big slam dunk spell that we're looking to cast. Like some like 8 mana huge thing. But it doesn't seem super relevant here. And Tolarian Terror is like the thing that will win us so many games. It's a 7 mana 5/5, but it costs 1 less for each instant and sorcery we have in our graveyard. So typically it's like a 2 or 3 mana 5/5 with Ward 2. Next, I want to fix the creature problem because we have too many creatures, and I think this is our worst one. It's a 2 mana 1/2. It's not great. Has kicker 3, which will bounce a creature, which like, okay, it's not really what I care about. It does get +2/+0 whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, but it doesn't have trample, so I just don't like it that much. And we're going to replace it with another basic spell, which is a 2 mana instant. Look at the top 4 and put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. The reason this is so powerful is it's just a spell that's going to trigger this, it's going to trigger this, it's going to put a spell in the graveyard for this, and then it just gets another spell. Though I will say, let's go ahead and add 2 of these and take out 2 of these. I will say it is noteworthy that Moment of Truth is very relevant here. So this is, look at the top 4, put 1 in your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library. This is, look at the top 3, so you see less cards, but you put 1 into hand, 1 on the bottom, and 1 in your graveyard. And that's 1 extra card in the graveyard for a Tolarian Terror. So you're basically choosing, do I want to see 4 cards, or do I want to see 1 less, but potentially get 1 more spell in the graveyard for a Tolarian Terror? I prefer Impulse, but I think this is fine as well. So I'm also going to take out one of these Eyes of Cataxius for another Impulse. So this is 3 mana, draw a card, incubate. It's expensive to draw, it's sorcery speed noteworthy. The incubate's nice, but I think we have enough creatures. We actually have too many in my opinion. So I just want the more efficient spell that just helps us chain spells. We want lots of cheap spells. And 3 mana is just a little clunky. So I say we need cheap spells, and then I'm going to put an expensive one in, because we have this, and it's okay. It's 5 mana, 5/4. It can duplicate spells. It lets you cast sorceries as instants. It's okay, but I really like, and this is kind of a pet card for me, I admit. But we have this. It puts an elemental in play with trample that has power and toughness equal to the number of instants and sorceries in our graveyard. But basically, we're trading a 5/4 that can copy spells sometimes for a 5 mana, who knows how big, potentially much bigger, that we can get 2 of them because it has flashback, and most importantly, it's a spell. So it's similar to this card where technically we're getting creatures, but it's also triggering our spell stuff, and that's what this is as well. It's a big giant creature, but also it's a spell for our spells matters thing. So I like this card a lot. And we're going to just put one in that spot right there. So next, I like this card a lot. It's 4 mana to draw 2, but it has Convoke. And we're pretty good at getting tokens into play with this. So a lot of times, it's like end of our opponent's turn, we pay 1, draw 2. It's really cool. The problem is it's really clunky if we don't have this. So I don't want to cut it out entirely, but I do want to take 1 out for a Thirst for Discovery. This is just 3 mana, draw 3, then discard 2 unless we discard a basic. So it basically draws 2 for 3, sort of. But also, sometimes we can ditch a couple spells that are irrelevant. Say we're playing against like a blue control deck. Maybe this isn't relevant because, you know, they don't have targeted removal. Or maybe like this isn't relevant because they don't have creatures. Sometimes we just discard 2 spells on purpose to fuel out a Tolarian Terror, and now to make our Seize the Storm token bigger. But also, like, you can just discard a basic. So it's draw 3, discard a basic, which is fine. So yeah, I just want 1 of those for 1 of these. I still want to keep 2, but I want to get 1 of these in. And finally, these other 2 Eye of Cataxius, we're going to take both of these out, and we're going to just add 2 more considers, or 1 consider, 1 impulse. Did I take 1 Cataxius out for 1 impulse and then just do that? Whatever. The point is, I want 4 considers, I want 4 impulse, and again, that could be Moment of Truth. And I don't want Eye of Cataxius. Great. So finally, we have, I think, too many lands. We have so much filtering. We have 4 considers, 4 impulse. We have filtering here. We have Thirst for Discovery. We have card draw here. We have so many ways to filter that I think we can cut 1 mountain for, you guessed it, another filtering thing. Thirst for Discovery. This puts us at 24 lands, which I think is fine. Notice how we now have 12 creatures and 24 spells, much better. And the plan now is to get something like this in play, get something like this in play, get a Hodigen in play, and just jam spells and go crazy. It's going to make these really cheap. We're going to win with these a lot. Yeah, it's better now. It looks more like a spells deck. There's only 2 noteworthy rares, and they're both in the deck. Hodigen and Chrome Host Seed Shark. Both of these are great. We could play 4 of these for sure. Chrome Host Seed Shark is fine. It's not typically played in these decks, but it could be. You could play like 4 of these, 1 or 2 of these, and be fine. The cards that aren't necessary are things like Baral and Kari Zev, Urabrask, technically Seize the Storm, technically. So like ideally, you would just take these 3 cards out, you'd add 4 Hodigen, and bam, you're done. Like, I would say that's totally fine. 4 Hodigen and you're just good. It's also worth noting that these spell-based decks, if you look at 20 different decks, you'll see every deck will have wildly different spells. This isn't typically played. Meeting of the Minds is not typical. Like, I would say, if you want this to be closer, like, both of these could go as well for, like, counter spells. A Make Disappear is common. You could play Make Disappear here. So, like, Hodigen for these 3 cards. And then you could take out some of these for Make Disappear, and that all just makes sense. Anyway, that's our deck. I have played mono blue Hadigen. So I'll leave a link to that in the description. I'll also leave a link to this deck list if you just want to copy paste it. It's all just commons and uncommons, so no big deal. But hopefully that's helpful. It should be much more consistent. It should play more like an Izzet Spells deck because, well, now it actually kind of is. I don't know what it was earlier. I guess it still had a lot of Izzet Spells stuff, but the ratios were just awful. But should be much better now. Hopefully that's useful. Hopefully that gets you some wins. Let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.